If you like audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description.
Welcome to Mindshock True Crime. This is your host, Bruce McGuire, and you are listening to the Delphi case series. This is episode 28, The Search. We're going to go over some interesting details, trying to nail down exactly which areas were searched when, and why there's so much confusion, and why all of these individuals seem to have a really hard time grasping what thermal imaging is. I already did an episode on the thermal imaging drone and how bodies would clearly be picked up if they were there. Some people are still trying to do all this mental gymnastics to, for whatever reason, I don't know, emotional triggering or whatnot, just blind faith in the cult of authority worship because it was reported that they were killed there at that time, that so many of these goofs, they just can't fathom the possibility that human beings can make mistakes. I mean, I don't know why, but whatever, here we are. Obviously, there's plenty of other POIs to go over, plenty of other issues, but I did want to touch on this, including what several Mindshock listeners have brought to my attention, issues that have not been discussed before, as we always do on Mindshock, in typical, comprehensive, logical fashion. A lot of people are triggered by it. A lot of people are just severely deficient in English comprehension, and their Dunning-Kruger is so severe and their ego has got them on too short strings, they can't re-examine their own assumed comprehension level in the English language, which is, of course, what all of these issues are in them not able to even understand the ideas being presented. But on Mindshock, we are all about getting to the truth in an objective, logical fashion without falling for any of these logical fallacies. As always, if you enjoy the Mindshock podcast, find it interesting, you can help support the podcast, help us get more mind-shocking content out there, keep up awareness in unsolved cases, cold cases, missing persons cases, wrongful convictions, and plenty more. You could donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that bell for notifications. You could also become a YouTube member, help support the channel that way, get access to exclusive streams and chats not available to the public. Like and share the podcast, Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic, logical analysis, co-podcaster requests. You could also be a guest in the podcast depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. As always, try to at least make sure you are on a first or second grade English comprehension level before flooding the chat, clearly demonstrating you didn't understand what was even presented, because that's been an ongoing issue in the comments. Obviously, Mindshock is a logical podcast, clearly not for a large percentage of the population, and yet they seem to just really want to hang out here anyway. But I mean, I guess that's good for educational purposes regarding psychology and logical fallacies. That is a good thing, so there's plenty to be learned, and those who find Dunning-Kruger stylings amusing, it's also quite hilarious in its own way. But here we are. So first things first, some people hallucinate and pretend that there's definitive evidence that the area where the bodies were found were not searched. Yet there's so much conflicting information and direct testimony that the area was not only specifically searched, but there was also personnel on the ground waving people away from searching that precise area, claiming it was already searched, which is quite strange. Others still just continue to maintain and hallucinate that it was definitely not searched, which is really weird. Let's go to this clip from Delphi Daughters, The Untold Story of Abby and Libby. So this was uploaded on WRTV Indianapolis on their YouTube channel, April 27th, 2017. I actually do not know the air date of this. I don't know if it was aired much earlier, around the same time. Whatever it was, it's on YouTube as of April 27th, 2017. Okay, so what do we have here? 2 minutes and 45 seconds, we have an interesting interview here.
Over 100 people out searching the area last night, walking both sides of the creek bank, 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 both sides of the creek bank.
So this searcher is saying there was over 100 people searching the night of, walking both sides of the creek bed. So let me read that again for all these goofs out there that hallucinate to know for sure that that side of the creek was not searched. This guy, this searcher volunteer, whoever he is, he's clearly stating that both sides of the creek were walked. Now, obviously, the bodies were not found right along the creek bed, but clearly that area was searched. Now, you can argue how well it was searched until you're blue in the face, of course, unless you were there and you walked the inches that you walked. But it's like a little depressed ravine-type area. There's plenty of footage available of it. To think that they would not have walked that far in, especially if these stories are true regarding personnel turning away additional searchers by claiming the area was already searched if it wasn't. I mean, that's just a strange story. I mean, even if it was, whether it was or wasn't searched, why was only that area there were people turning others away from searching? I mean, I'm assuming all these other areas were searched multiple times, right? How come in no other area other than the area the bodies were found were people turning away searchers? Is that not weird to certain people out there? I mean, how many of these coincidence theorists out there just ignore all this information? Now, of course, all of it could be false. All of these interviews could be false. All these people could be mistaken. But to just pretend that de facto, I mean, these are missing teens. To think that a real search would not have been done, I mean, that's kind of weird. That is kind of weird indeed. I mean, other theories regarding on why the search was stopped. So apparently, if the authorities were alerted of some kind of social media activity that made them think they were at a party or somebody else's house or something, whether fake or not, if the authorities truly believed they were legit, I mean, that's still kind of messed up that they would suspend the search. But then again, if they had the thermal imaging drone out and there was just no sign of them and there's 100 searchers, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of rough. I mean, that's kind of rough because it really does appear that they're just not there or farther out, in which case you would need to search at a larger radius. So perhaps suspending or minimizing the search around the bridge, I mean, that might seem logical and just moving farther and farther out, but how far out did the thermal imaging drone really search? I mean, there's people out there that claim it would not have been flown over the bridge when the drone operator explicitly said he did. So clearly the drone flew over where the bodies were found, and I'll just go real quick. You know, you're not arguing with me. Some people think they're arguing with me when they think the bodies would not have been found. I mean, you can go to sciencedirect.com. I mean, algor mortis, the body loses between 1 and 1.5 degrees Celsius per hour. And there's anywhere between a 30-minute and a 3-hour delay before that even starts happening. So the margin for error here, it's not like the drone was flown at like 3 o'clock in the morning where you start to crunch the math and you might think, okay, it might have not picked up thermal signatures. It was flown that afternoon, just mere hours later. Obviously, the bodies would have been cooling. Some people might just not understand how sensitive this equipment is. It's comparing the temperature relative to the ground. The bodies, it's not like the bodies cool to the ambient temperature instantly. It takes a really long time. Takes hours and hours. Those claiming, oh, well, they walked through the creek, therefore the temperatures wouldn't have picked up. Even if their entire lower half, or even if they were submerged up to the chest, as soon as they get out of the water, unless they're claiming they were killed in the water and dragged up, even then they'd probably have to have like floated in the water for a couple minutes in order to just get that temperature down before being drug up, in which case there would have been clear signs of dragged bodies. So no matter how you try, no matter how many mental gymnastics moves people try to make, I mean, it's weird. It's like they're so emotionally triggered they can't handle the possibility that the bodies really weren't there. It's just weird. I mean, that much blind faith in the idiot box, I don't know. People make mistakes. If law enforcement did not make mistakes, this case would be solved already. I mean, these are not advanced concepts to understand. So, yeah, clearly we have this searcher stating both sides were searched. There's some event to suspend the search. Now, That is curious. Now, we also have the phone pinging all over town. So, other cell phone technicians have chimed in and stated that in 2017, they were pretty exact in terms of pinging phones. So, when they say the phone pinged all over town, if that information is accurate, I mean, that's what was reported. It might not be accurate, but that is what was reported. And that would mean that the phone literally was moving a certain distance from cell towers. Now, the transfer from one tower to another, that can occur for a bunch of different reasons, but the distance the phone is from the tower is going back and forth. So was the phone brought back to the scene? So it wasn't there first, then it was brought back to the scene. Also, what nobody seems to talk about is the sneaker found near the hill, maybe the down the hill, maybe not, that was not found on the original search on the 13th. See, that's a problem. That would suggest the bodies were brought back and possibly there could have been some planted evidence, both in items of clothing, the phone, other possible issues. I mean, this is not rocket science. These are all theoretical possibilities, but you would have to think, I mean, how likely is all this? Obviously, if they released the drone footage, I'm assuming, depending on exactly where the drone took off from, you might be able to even make out that sneaker unless, I mean, I guess they might have found it. No, they found it after, yeah. So you might, if the sneaker is there and they didn't found it, it should be there. But then if it's there the next day and it wasn't there the previous day, what does that mean? These are questions. I'm asking questions here. The other thing that's highly suspect in this case is, of course, the timeline. And the search, the issues with the search, if the girls were taken by car to another location, either willingly or not, again, this is all conjecture. What does that mean with the search? Because the search would have obviously not found them if they weren't there. The thermal imaging drone would have obviously not found them if they weren't there. Now, here's another issue. Some people purport that even the bridge guy video was planted to divert attention away from the true perpetrator or perpetrators. And the timeline of that Snapchat also, again, I don't know if we have actual Snapchat programmers that listen to the Mindshock podcast, but different people have said different things. Is that the timestamp of opening the photo and not the upload time? And even if it is the upload time, you can upload a photo that wasn't taken at that time. You can upload a previous photo at a different time. So is there irrefutable proof that they were at the bridge that day at that time? And I'm using the word irrefutable here. Obviously, there is evidence to suggest they were there at the time alleged. But is it irrefutable proof? Some argue it is not irrefutable. Here is a comment from Sue on the Mindshock YouTube. On Sunday, Abby's mom dropped her off at the Patty home after she practiced with her new ball and glove. Abby's grandfather headed back to Michigan Sunday. Now, is that the grandfather that lives just down the road from the bridge, from the alleged abduction site? Because if he's only a quarter or a half mile down that road, I mean, what does that mean for the case? But again, here it's stating he was not there. So in which case, again, I'm assuming law enforcement has checked this all out. And then weren't there other stories that stated that Abby had not been on the bridge before? So if she really lives down the road, right down the road from the bridge, I mean, I don't know. Again, I wasn't there. I really don't know. How likely is it that she has never been there and that others have never seen her? Now, Libby, of course, actually geocached in that area with Kelsey, so clearly they've been there before, but Abby's grandfather allegedly lives right down the road there. What does that mean for the case? Because that's something that wasn't really discussed early on. And then in the previous episode, we did discuss the rumor that one of the landowners may have possibly yelled at Liberty German for trespassing right in that area. So what does that mean for the case? But continuing with this post here, in the pics of Abby holding a softball and a ball glove, she is wearing black slacks. The bridge pic shows her wearing medium blue colored jeans with rips. So, did she go by her home after practice and change out of the black slacks and into the blue jeans before the Patty home drop-off? Did she pack an overnight bag with the blue jeans? If so, why the need to wash her clothes, as Becky Patty stated that Abby's clothes had gone through their washer and dryer? I don't understand the need to wash her clothes. She was there one night, not a week. She was to be there one night, not a week. Also, Becky Patty states that she herself seen a pic of Abby playing ball Sunday and Abby was wearing a jacket. So was the jacket that Abby was wearing Sunday the same jacket she is seen in Monday? If not, why not? Where is the jacket from Sunday? Kelsey German states the pic of Abby on the bridge Monday is her jacket, Kelsey German's jacket. Were the pic of Abby taken a different day? Now, these are some excellent questions, and we also have to keep in mind that apparently there were many videos and photos taken that day, the day before, and they would offer a lot of clues into the exact wardrobes here. And also the logistics of changing clothes. Now, I mean, obviously it's not that unusual for people to change their clothes throughout the day, particularly going from one place to another. But if they didn't, I mean, I don't know. I don't know, because there's a lot of other problems with the timeline. In any other case, you might not want to spend all this time closely examining wardrobe. But in this case, where the timeline is just so highly questionable, because in the previous episode, of course, we also talked about how possibly nobody actually saw the girls on the trail or on the bridge. Which is a little strange because, again, if it was any other super cold day, there's not a lot of people walking the trails, okay, a lot less strange. But on such an unusually warm February day, that was also a day off from school where supposedly other kids from school would have been walking the trails who actually knew the girls. I mean, unless this all does exist and it's just been kept completely hush-hush by law enforcement for whatever reason. I mean, I guess that's a possibility as well. This is, of course, Mindshock, where the only thing we know for sure is that we don't know anything for sure. So this is all highly, highly questionable, and we don't have solid answers here. Now, if there were solid answers, would the case already be solved? Does law enforcement have enough information to solve the case? Some postulate they actually know exactly who did it. Dead or alive, they know, which is why the case is kind of dragging on in a way, because they're not in a rush because they already know. Others, of course, speculate they don't know. They don't know jack. This is completely botched, and it's going to be ongoing forever because of the botching. And with so much unverifiable information, I mean, there's really, it's hard to make heads or tails out of anything. If the bridge guy video is a plant by the perpetrator or perpetrators themselves, whether or not they're law enforcement or government officials, whether or not you want to go down that conspiracy rabbit hole, whether you want to go down it or not, is it possible the bridge guy video is a plant? I mean, there's a lot of problems with this case. That is one thing that cannot be disputed. Okay, so the last thing we're going to go over isn't specifically related to the search, but it is relatively mind-shocking, so I will go into this. So Tony Kline, the father of Kegan Kline, has been long speculated to either be Bridge Guy himself or somehow having assisted Kegan Kline if Kegan Kline was responsible in any way. Again, I am not claiming anyone is guilty or innocent. I don't know how many times I have to say that for all the goofs out there. But some people believe Tony Kline is Bridge Guy or partially responsible. Now, the Murder Sheet podcast has, of course, gotten into his history, which is apparently not clean. So he's had charges before, and apparently one of them was involving an 11-year-old. So in relation to the Delphi case, there were early rumors that Libby German was going to be going to the police about something. Now, some people believe that's related to Derek German, her father, or some other drug-dealing individuals. But Is it possible it's related to Tony Kline? An interesting post from the Libby and Abby subreddit here by friendly Uncle Possum. Frankly, this is a game changer from my point of view. What are the odds that this is all just coincidence? Obviously, the coincidence theorist would say it all is, but the only partially named POI ever released by law enforcement who stalks and sexualizes children and has a father who stalks and threatens children while sexually harassing women is not involved with this murder. These Kline fellas are right at the top of the list of POIs for me. Now, again, I still don't know what to make of Garrett Kurtz, because, I mean, this is a guy that grew up on Ron Logan's land. He knew Ron Logan. He's already killed other people. He's a violent criminal. And he's not responsible for bodies found on Ron Logan's land, unless they all know each other, of course. Refer to the previous podcast episodes for those speculations. So, here's another post by Kelly C. Peters. A theory is popping into my mind after listening is that maybe Libby, who we know was talking to Kegan, later found out his true identity and was threatening to tell someone about him because he was manipulating her or threatening her, and either he coerced her into wiping her phone or she did it herself, given his dad's history with intimidation of the 11-year-old referred to in the podcast. Maybe his dad decided to take care of the problem since they knew the girls were there that day. Kegan and his dad could be alibis for each other that day, and Kegan could have been the driver, but not necessarily. Now Kegan's negotiations have broken down because he's not backing off the alibi. Although the witness account leads to the catfish photo, the original stands. Okay. So that's all quite mind-shocking. So we're going to go into another mind shock here because I don't believe this has ever been properly addressed. Are we about to solve the problem with the sketches? Because in this Kelly C. Peters post here, she mentions the new witness account leads to the catfish photo, the original stands. And here is a link to, I believe, a Facebook post. If I haven't posted this before, this is what she told me she actually saw. This is regarding the witness of the first sketch. Before law enforcement screwed around with it. Short billed hat with a hoodie and the scarf below his nose and around her height, which was 5'6" at the time. That was her description that law enforcement released in July 2017. And she did not wait months to come forward. She went to law enforcement as soon as the girls were found on the 14th. But she had seen this altered sketch I made right here and has agreed that it is similar to what she saw. She also guessed him to be in the 40s or 50s. This is what I have. I can't answer questions I have no answers for. This is what she and her mom shared with me. After that, think what you will. And a few responses here. It is a very helpful sketch that I haven't seen before. Definitely nefarious. There was no need for a face mask on such a mild day, unless this guy had asthma or some type of medical condition that required one. I would definitely wonder what was up with this guy if I came across him. Another response, I think you just proved a lot of people's theory if this is actually what one of the witnesses saw. And how could anyone give a close description of what the guy looks like? But going by his eyes and nose, there is even less to actually go on if this is the case. Wow. So if the witness actually did not see his mouth or his jaw, I mean, this actually would explain so much confusion, would it not? Would it not? So if the second sketch is the model and the catfish profile, which also doesn't make a lot of sense, because why not you just use the photo from social media? Because if that was still up, unless it was all wiped and it was just recollection. But wouldn't there be an archive anyway on the other... Because apparently other people came forward about it on the social media. I don't know. But if it's both Kegan Kline and his father, Tony Kline, who both have criminal histories now, both have criminal histories involving minors, is it all coincidental? Now, the rumor about Libby going to the police, that's weird. That is weird. That was, I believe that was circulated early on. If it is indeed, if she did happen to find out information about individuals that were engaged in this online activity and she was planning to report them and she made that known, would that make her a target? So here's another post by Marissa. The Shack. Killer was abused as a child. Shred of conscience left in a son covering up for a dad, maybe, question mark. Kegan Kline allegedly threatened a girl for wanting to bring a friend to meet. Phone resetting. Early rumors of catfishing. And when the Anthony Shot stuff came out, a rumor that a friend of the girl's had also been talking to him, and even more rumors about Libby wanting to go to the police. Many thoughts about the kind of coincidence it would have to be for all this and Kegan Kline and his dad to not be directly involved. But what we've thought about that and 10 other known people, we're always wrong. Some more posts here. I always assumed going to the police meant in general, not at a certain time, and thought it may be pertinent to something she had learned during her class at Purdue. With all the different POIs, I thought maybe she learned something about one of them. Now I wonder if she was going to report the Anthony Shots account. So, I don't know. This is all very, very strange, very, very sketchy. It still does not really explain the issues with the timeline the day of. Were they intentionally muddied because the Klines are potentially connected to other individuals? If the girls were taken either willingly or unwittingly from that bridge location, if they were ever even there in the first place, taken elsewhere, was there some kind of fake party set up to maybe try to intimidate Libby not to go to the police? And then something went wrong? And then since they knew the girls were at the bridge before, they wanted to... I mean, that's still a very, very high risk to bring the bodies back unless they were in some kind of an outbuilding relatively close to the location. And that, again, that's where Garrett Kurtz comes in. He's very familiar with the entire property. He would know where all the outbuildings are. If he's connected to the Klines, I mean, that makes a little bit more sense, does it not? Does it not? And then if we're going down major rabbit holes, if there's also some kind of law enforcement corruption or FBI investigation taking place with possibly complicit FBI agents, that would render the investigation basically useless, that they would never find out the real truth if that's what those agents wanted, if they were involved. So obviously we don't know any of this. Again, I'm not claiming anything is true or untrue. I mean, I don't know how many times I have to say that. There's so many goofs out there hallucinating that I'm actually reporting an assumption is a fact or some kind of nonsense. I am not reporting anything is true or untrue. I don't know how to say it in more simple terms, but I've said it so many times in this episode. Hopefully all the goofs out there, if their mental deficiencies are not too extreme, they could understand at this point. If they are, I mean, really, the Mindshock podcast is obviously not for them. They can stick to the mainstream sources on the Idiot Box. Hope you guys enjoyed another edition of Mindshock True Crime. Found it interesting and informative, opening up all possible lines of inquiry and investigation. Because, of course, the truth is not afraid of investigation. The case is unsolved for a reason. If you want to support Mindshock, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. You could also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Help support the channel, get access to exclusive streams and chats. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that bell for notifications, like and share, Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.